I don't know if you know this, but Arcane Mage has received a rework. Listen, I know this happens every patch, but this time it's pruned, simplified, and almost too easy. Almost. It got a whole bunch of cool new toys, has some of the most ridiculous awesome effects, and it may very well be the last saving grace for the mage as a class. I know you hear this all the time, and I will only take a moment to tell you that if you enjoy our videos, especially this one, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It helps us grow and get our content to more players out there. And if you want to be more involved in what we do and get access to some exclusive Marcelian&Flame perks, check out patreon.com/Marcelian&Flame. Thank you, and let's get back to the video. Mage and all classes in Midnight are drastically simplified, spells pruned and bloat deleted, and Arcane is no different. A quick rundown of your mage kit and what you can expect with the current version of the class talents. First of all, you'll lose about 3 defensives in the damage reduction Greater Invisibility gave you, which now is a glorified vanish. Mass Barrier is out the window, which offered Arcane a bigger incentive to be in a 5-man group, outside, the constant amazing design and tuning it had for the whole War Within expansion that made it a meta spec for 3 seasons in a row. Mirror Image will also just be a mirror image spell now, with the clones not providing you with damage reduction at all, but rather just reduce your threat significantly. That's very niche, not necessarily bad, but definitely a less interesting ability. Don't take these changes too seriously, since a lot of classes went through this same stuff, changes which likely means dungeons and raids will pose less danger to players. The amount of burst damage we have been seeing over the years was also to account for the amount of defensives players had access to, which in turn, getting rid of them gives us the option of having easier encounters with less spiky damage, since now at most classes will have 2 to 3 defensives as opposed to the previous 5 that at least mages had. Ice Flows and Blast Wave are also gone, something I'm not personally happy about, since they're always choice nodes and very niche things, not game breaking or meta defining in any way. You have 2 new capstones in Spatial Manipulation, which can be an interesting addition that compensates Ice Flows a bit, but also improved Prismatic Barrier that turns your 30 seconds shield into a 25% magic damage reduction and 40% less debuff duration on you. That's actually really strong, and all mage specs get their barriers juiced up into more relevant buttons to press. Hilariously, likely stronger still than Shaman defensives, lol. Alright, let's talk about the actual Arcane changes, and I will preface this that I will be avoiding the mention of talents that just give you stuff like extra stats, which is the case of the new Arcane Tempo. All specs have some simplified talents that take away old procs and auras you used to track with add-ons and instead fatten up the damage of your base spells. With that in mind, Nether Precision is gone as a mechanic, and everything that used to work with it has been reworked and simplified in a good way. Essentially, it and old Arcane Harmony have been replaced with Arcane Salvo that turns every spell you cast into a barrage buffer. Intuition is gone as well, and now the 4th row is more streamlined, with Arcane Surge and Arcane Orb taking the spots of middle and right, and a new talent called Arcane Pulse that replaces the dead Arcane Explosion. This is a castable spell from range that does the same thing Explosion does, but not force you to go into melee range. Touch of the Magi has received a shiny new icon and lost some of its more complex interactions. It is now capped at 20% of the damage that it accumulates as opposed to before, and Magi Spark is gone. Instead, just beneath it we have Arcane Salvo with a new choice node talent in Egwin's Technique, where touch gives you an extra clear casting charge. This just makes it smoother to cast and not force any gameplay where you hold on to procs to consume during it. Aether Attunement has changed a bit as well, where it is a 2-pointer investment, but makes your missiles always hit additional targets. The effect has always been really cool, and not having a prerequisite gameplay interaction makes it more approachable and less add-on reliant. Evocation also just gives you mana now, no longer has the main stat buff as before, and is a choice node with Mana Adept, a passive version of mana management which I played with in dungeons and never found myself lacking in mana at any point. The second to last row is a lot cleaner now, with Prodigious Savant and Eureka being 2-pointers, with a new one called Electrostatic Orb, which makes Arcane Orb give you 5 extra stacks of salvo per cast, Perfect for AoE because the capstones make more sense now. Orb Barrage now procs from Barrage with a 3% chance per salvo consumed. So if you stack it to 20, that's 60% chance per barrage to launch an orb. Each orb giving you up to 6 total stacks of salvo, meaning your gameplay loop of barrage or barrage gets more accelerated. But the kicker is Orb Mastery, the best thing since sliced bread. Arcane Orb now consumes clear casting, and when it does so, it launches 2 extra orbs. With the previous talents, that means up to 18 stacks of salvo with a clear casted orb on top of whatever else you might be doing, of course in AoE. More on this in the playstyle section. The second new capstone in the middle is Focusing Crystal, making missiles give you salvo per wave of arcane missiles while increasing their damage by 15%. This will make more sense once we talk about yet another new capstone in Charged Missiles, a choice with high voltage, which was likely simplified to a base 30% chance to give you a charge rather than 10% but increasing every time the effect does not occur. Once again, simplifying the mechanic, tooltip, and understanding of what it does. Back to this new one, arcane missiles will consume an arcane charge per wave cast to get an 80% damage increase, meaning the last wave will still be unbuffed, which is a little bit weird, but whatever. What's cool about it is the obvious focus on a big arcane missiles play. My confusion with it is that it works counterintuitively with Salvo and Barrage, since both will now consume arcane charges, but each consumes a different buff, while missiles contribute to barrage damage. It all just makes it a little bit counterintuitive and seemingly goes against their philosophy on making it simple. I'm actually pretty certain this will get reworked to not feel conflicting with Barrage. Technically, it's not that hard to play both, but would require more finesse than the devs seem to want from Midnight classes as a whole. Since Nether Precision is gone, Spellslinger will generate splinters from Arcane Blasts and Arcane Pulses, period. That's it. And while we are at it, it seems I'm constantly forgetting that shifting power is gone also. Look Again makes Blink spawn a mirror image, which is cool. I think this was a Torghast power at one point. And Signature Spell now just makes your touch conjure 4 splinters. Force of Will makes your barrage conjure splinters per salvo consumed. The 3 new talents sees a choice node with Attuned Familiar that gives it a chance to conjure splinters, while Shifting Sands makes clear casting conjure splinters as well. Infused Splinter makes the arcane splinters have a chance to grant you arcane salvo stacks. And lastly, if you cast arcane barrage at 20 or more salvos, you gain 5 of them back. Remember the orb talents we mentioned? Yeah. Sun Fury gives you a 12% chance per spell cast to get a spell sphere, and all other talents have been made to work with Arcane Salvo. Glorious Incandescence procs from getting a spell sphere, and your next barrage calls down 4 meteorites. With Pyrochasm, each meteorite will give you 2 stacks of salvo, so 8 from the whole thing. This also feels like a talent you would want to track to make sure you are not over-generating salvo stacks. But since you lost about 3 to 5 other things you would have tracked otherwise, having one thing added is still massively pruned. Spellfire Salvo will make your salvo stack to 25 now, as if anticipating this. This obviously increases the value of Orb Mastery as well, bringing into question as to how much you still want to play the new Arcane Missiles period. Lastly, Memory of Alar is juiced once again. Your barrages are free and give you clear casting again, but also don't consume salvo instead of just getting stronger with each cast. Not sure how this will work in practice, since depending on your build, it's a good chance that whatever consumes clear casting also consumes arcane charges as well, lowering the power of barrage, at least at first glance. As for the playstyle, if you ever had doubts about playing Arcane, throw them out the window. This spec is incredibly simple, almost too simple, where if you play it without capstones, it turns into the most basic DPS spec in the game, which means that the capstones are more or less playstyle defining, and you have so many options to combine them into something still simple but meaningful, to some crazy procs and interactions that will make you laugh your ass off at how insane everything looks and is. Also, since I didn't mention the Apex talents so far, because they are apparently optional by design, you don't get a huge interaction change. Actually, the only noticeable change is the first point into Touch of the Archmage that gives your Touch of the Magi an extra charge, and the 5% missing damage accumulation that you have on live. The 2-pointer just fattens up your damage, while the last one leaves a pulsing rune on the target that deals AoE damage to nearby enemies. If you don't play AoE at all, you might just not care about all of these and just pick the first point. Having flexibility makes these nice, and they can round up into some fun builds. Some of the most fun I had in WoW lately has been this build with Spellslinger that I played live on stream. Oh yeah, we do stream almost daily on twitch.tv/Marcelian&Flame, and you can catch me be a total dumbass live while learning how to play Arcane without add-ons. Spoiler, you kinda don't need any at all. But the AoE flow of Barrage and Orb has been dopamine inducing, considering you really just press 2 buttons. You might need to keep an eye on your salvos, which is fairly easy with the new cooldown manager that is only going to get better. I tried making an Arcane Missiles build work, but like I mentioned, the charged missile talent just doesn't work well with the new Arcane Barrage mechanic, since they will very often conflict, and more than that, you will find yourself with no arcane charges and 3 stacks of clear casting. The best way I managed to get it to work was, funnily enough, with the new Orb talent. When I was low on charges but had clear casting, I would cast Orbs. When I was full on charges, had clear casting, and not maxed on Arcane Salvo, I went for missiles, with barrages in between. I don't think this will be sustainable at max level, and this is the best I could work with so far. More iterations might be needed, but it's headed into the right direction at the very least. Outside the one talent that seems anti-synergistic, Arcane feels cool to play. It's slower, but can be due to my leveling gear as well, but definitely feels more impactful. Fewer little buffs and procs make each button feel better to play, and if things keep going like this, the spec looks like a legit Arcane Mage, a master of any type of damage with intuitive and meaningful talents that make sense to pick for people with no degree in Mage. Not something I can say about Fire Mage, unfortunately, although some people might find it fun. We made a video on it, more to raise awareness on its state, in case you guys also agree that it might just be too much. It's right here, you can click it. Although honestly, I don't really know if you'll like it at all.